Welcome to the workshop, which is designed by local writers and researchers in collaboration with environmental activists. I'm Dr. Alison Habens, novelist and course leader for creative writing at the University of Portsmouth. My particular interest is in whether different kinds of creative writing can have bigger or better impact on our own environmental actions. The first part of the session is an illustrated talk that will introduce you to Pens of the Earth, Portsmouth Friends of the Earth, and Wilder Portsmouth. Then we'll do a guided creative writing activity, giving you the time and space to write peacefully before checking in together at a halfway point. In the second hour of the session, I'll lead you through a different writing task, using alternative tricks and techniques, though you'll still be thinking about the same theme. As you listen to the talk and look at the pictures in this introduction, start to recall a street you know well, from memory or currently, a garden or wasteland you're familiar with, a raised bed in some unexpected place, or a surprising verge. We'll be prompting you to pen some new words about these inspiring small differences this evening. And as the session unfolds, there are 4 questions or points for discussion which we'll ask you about. I'll say the first 3 now, and these are the first 3 questions that are in the chat box already for you to respond to with a few words at some point in the first part of the evening, if you would be so kind. And then the 4th question, a mystery one, will be revealed at the end. So there's simply this. Number 1, how well, as things stand right now, how well informed would you say you are on environmental issues? And number 2 is, how likely are you to act on your knowledge of environmental issues? And then question number 3 is, how much do you talk to your friends and family about environmental issues? And so I'm now going to hand you over to Helen for her introduction to Pens of the Earth.
Hi. Basically, Pens of the Earth was launched in 2018. And it was a collaboration between the writers of the Portsmouth Writers Hub and local Portsmouth environmentalists. When it started, it was very much centred on what was happening in Portsmouth. We've gradually started to open that up wider. And really, the founding of Pens of the Earth was inspired by how exciting some of the environmental initiatives in Portsmouth were. And a lot of those environmental initiatives, although originally I encountered them in Portsmouth, are actually wider and national initiatives. And part of the ethos of Pens of the Earth is this sense that there is too much bad news. And we tend to get clobbered by bad news. And actually, it was about what happens if we look at the positive, and if we use the positive to inspire our writing. What is possible? We've had 3 publication runs so far. We have a fabulous team of volunteers and a growing audience. And we are currently inviting you to submit to us. We have a submission window. If you look on the right-hand side of this slide, we're inviting submissions this year on the theme Small Differences Add Up, which we're very grateful to Andy Ames for inspiring the submission theme. We're looking for positive environmental stories, poetry and narrative non-fiction. It doesn't have to be set in or about Portsmouth. And you can see the limits on prose. That's just because we publish online, and there is a limit to how long people are likely to want to read, similar with poetry. And you've got until the 30th of September to submit. And today's workshop has been designed to help inspire ideas around the small differences add up theme, and to look at how many small acts can add up to big changes. And we're doing this with regard to Streets for People. Successful submissions will be published on our website and promoted on social media, and may also be published elsewhere, and you retain copyright for your work. For full information on what we're looking for and how to submit, you need to read our guidelines. And as I finish speaking, I'm going to put the guidelines and a few other links into the chat. Now, I'm just going to give you a very high level overview of Streets for People before our various speakers talk about sort of specific areas. So Streets for People is a local, national and global initiative which has been gathering momentum for a number of decades. It's driven by a variety of organisations, including Living Streets, Sustrans, Playing Out and Friends of the Earth. And the aim of Streets for People is to seek a compromise between the needs of traffic and the needs of the people who live within a city. It aims to create livable cities where children can play, people can enjoy walking and cycling, communities can gather and wildlife can prosper. And there have been a large number of successful projects, and with each successful project, it's becoming clearer that creating Streets for People can have a massive positive impact on community, family, health, well-being, air quality, safety, and our environment. And it can also help to decrease traffic congestion. Now, I'm going to drop some links in, so if you want to read wider about Streets for People, there'll be some links in the chat. I'm now going to introduce Megan. And Portsmouth Friends of the Earth have really been the forerunners when it comes to Streets for People. I first heard of Streets for People in a meeting they held in 2018. And they've been seeking to inform what is possible and to consult with the people of Portsmouth as to what they want. And Megan is going to tell you more.
Okay, right, well, hello everybody. My name's Meghausen. I've been a volunteer in Portsmouth Friends of the Earth for about 4 years. I retired that year and felt I wanted to do something useful. But of course, Portsmouth Friends of the Earth has been doing its best lobbying and campaigning on making streets better for pedestrians and cyclists since the 1970s. And the aim has always been to try and get people out of their cars and to make the city greener and more pleasant. And this next slide is an aspirational one for North End. It sort of culminated in 2018 with the event that Helen mentioned, Streets for People. And I think we found it quite inspirational and gave us ideas for our next campaign. And we had campaigns on bees and clean air. And so we weren't able to start immediately, but when we did, we decided to consult, and we actually consulted at that first meeting, the Streets for People meeting, and people indicated that North End was an area that probably needed a little help. So we took ourselves up to, I say up because I think I'm in Southsea, I say up, but we took ourselves over to North End, and we consulted with the locals over a few weekends. And they were all saying the same thing. They wanted fewer cars, more greenery, wider pavements, better cycling, etc. So that gave us some ideas, and we noticed on Derby Road that there were 2 large raised beds that were not those back a bit. That's it. So the one on the left is before and during the work. So we cleared that raised bed and we replanted it. Maybe it doesn't sound like a big job, but actually it was. We collaborated with other local groups, including Andy from the Wildlife Trust, but we also had help from the council and from other environmental groups nearby. And despite COVID, we were able to do that last year. So that was quite a challenge because of restrictions. But we're almost there. And if you go back again, sorry, Alison, we've had Fark, who's a local artist. He's done the paintings on the back, and he's done paintings on the front of the raised beds as well. And we're not quite finished yet, but it's getting there. Okay, so that's Derby Road. Now, I mean, we hope that is going to make that little space better for the local people, because it's a bit grim at the moment, or it was before we did the raised beds. And the next project that we've started is a large overpaved area outside Stamshaw School, also in North End. And again, we've consulted with the school, we've collaborated with the Wildlife Trust, and we've asked people what they would like. And of course, we have to bring people along with us. There's no point just saying we want to do something. We have to do what the locals want. So our hope is that we'll be able to have a parklet, with greater greenery and less paving. And I mean, there's all sorts of things we can do to make that area nice. And again, the aim is to make it a nice space for the locals. There's a retirement complex to one side, and we think, the people there might be able to use it. The children and the teachers, parents will be able to use it. So we've got high hopes for that area. These pictures, this is North End, this picture on the left. I snapped that because I thought it was such a sad use of space, because it could be really nice if it was planted up. And I think there is a group actually that's taking snaps of wasted spaces and putting them online, which is good. And you can also send those to the council and give them some ideas. Okay, so just to say that we continue to support other environmental groups. There's quite a few in Portsmouth. They're all doing different things. The Climate Coalition, for instance, did a little thing where they were looking for, really nice gardens and flowers, and, where people have actually done something nice with their house. and putting hearts, drawing hearts on front and taking photos. So we supported that, and we went around the city, up and down the streets doing that, and that was great fun. It just shows people that we appreciate what they're doing. And I just think we need to keep all these things going because, you know, especially with climate change, it's going to affect everybody, and we have to, all these small actions will lead to a significant positive change, I think. So anyway, that last picture on the right is a pocket park in Walthamstow. And I took that because it's just at the corner of where my daughter lives. And it looks much better at the moment because the plants have all grown up. But it's just an idea, you know, and something that was built really, really quickly. And I think we can, you know, look at these examples and do more of it in Portsmouth. Okay, so I think that's about all I've got to offer.
Thank you. Thanks very much,
okay,
Megan. So now we come back to Helen.
Lovely. Well, if we could have had 4 speakers tonight, we'd probably have had Laura Meller talking about playing out and Jenny from Sustrans talking about school streets. But instead, I'm just going to briefly touch on these 2 projects. Now, one of the things that Megan was touching on with the aspirational pictures of London Road is the idea of changing the usage of roads as a permanent thing and sort of providing cycle roads and things like that. But a lot of amazing changes can be introduced just by temporarily closing streets. And the 2 projects that I want to talk about, Playing Out and School Streets, are both about closing streets for a period of time. Now, I'm going to drop some links into the chat again, and you've got the Playing Out links, and then you'll have the school streets when I come to that. Playing Out is, again, it started as a national movement. Sorry, I've just had to flip into my notes. It's a parent and resident-led movement that is restoring children's freedom to play safely outside their own front door. And it began in one street in Bristol in 2009. And it's gradually spread across the whole of the UK and wider than the UK. Now, in Portsmouth, our first playing out street was in July 2019, and it was Francis Avenue in Southsea, and it was closed for the afternoon to allow children to play out. And this was the result of a campaign led by Laura Meller, and it was approved and supported by Portsmouth City Council. And they continue to approve and support playing out streets. So it's something that can happen more in Portsmouth. Play streets depend on the residents of a street working together. It often involves many people taking small supporting roles, volunteering to be wardens on the day, and it really helps to bring communities together. I mean, I noticed with Francis Avenue that during the whole of the last year and a half, they had a very active street community. I mean, that I saw pictures of them kind of standing outside their houses, dancing, and just a real sense that they had become a community. And I think things like the Playing Out initiative helped with that. Now, these are some quotes from people from that street, so I'll just let you read those. And then moving on to school streets. I mean, this is, I think, hugely exciting because for a couple of years, school Sustrans have been developing the school streets programme. And if you look at this first quote, the idea and the picture, the idea that children have to walk through idling traffic to go to school is quite shocking when you stop to think about it. And it's a very, very simple idea, school streets. It's just that it's a temporary closure. It's between 30 and 60 minutes at either end of the school day, and the streets are closed to traffic. And again, I'll let you read the bottom part. The very exciting thing is that this is coming to Portsmouth. I'm just going to let you read these slides. Now, what I'd say is when it comes to the successful piloting of school streets, a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, consulting with members of the local community, as well as parents, the schools and councils, because it's about getting everybody involved and really encouraging them to support this. Next slide. And then these are just some words from Jenny, which you can read. Now I've put some links into the chat, and they include the article that Jenny wrote for us, which just gives you a bit more information, and some links to Sustrans. So you can read more if you want to. That's it.
Helen, you will just introduce Andy now with you, and then we'll link into him.
Yes. What can I say about Andy? He's amazing. And this is another hugely exciting project, which has been growing over the last couple of years. So, Andy, would you like to talk about Wilder Portsmouth?
I will, yes. Oh, we go back to the first slide. Yes, right. So I'll start with that slide because, well, like you say, Wilder Portsmouth's been around the last couple of years now, over lockdown, and it's actually been a real privilege to link in with all the people that have just been talked about. So I've worked with Friends of the Earth at Derby Road, and we're doing more work with Friends of the Earth, working with Sustrans with the school closures, working with both Jenny and Laura, Francis Avenue and places like that. So actually it's really nice that the way that Portsmouth as a city, people have got together and worked together, because actually at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. So that's been great. The missing posters was one of our first things that we did. We decided that everyone looked at lampposts and said, oh, what's missing? So I knew they always looked. So we designed some that had slow worms and hedgehogs and cuckoos and stag beetles, animals and things that you would find in Portsmouth once. You could still find them sometimes. And this is evidence, because this is somebody in Francis Avenue who actually found a slow worm after the slow worm missing sign went up, which was great. So they suddenly knew what it was, which is lovely. So yeah, that's been really good. If we move on then, so I can talk through. So some of the things we do, so we developed some Wilder streets So Tamworth Park, Tamworth Road was one of our wildest streets. So the photos here are really just the community coming together. The children at Tamworth love sowing the seeds every year for their wild garden in the park. So that's them at the top there sowing the seeds, and that's one of their patches that they've got with their little sign asking people not to pick the flowers, please, because they like looking at them. So we do quite a bit of work with streets as well as individuals, which has been brilliant. And going back to the theme that we pulled up earlier around everybody could do something, that has been really evident when we've looked at streets, because everybody's been able to do something, from sowing a seed to being the guy in the road who's got the tools to dig holes, or or drawing the picture, because it's not just about growing. What I've discovered is lots of people like a bit of wildlife, like a bit of nature, but they feel they can't do anything. So maybe it's the builder or the artist or the poet or the teacher or the church, but everybody has something, and it's about connection. What we've discovered is people need to connect to nature to want to make that change, and nature connection isn't just watching David Attenborough and go, that's amazing. It's beyond that, and that's what we look for as part of the project. So there's 5 key elements to connecting to nature, and they're very sort of around your senses and your emotions, the beauty, the meaning of things, and then the compassion. And when you start connecting all those things together, you may be just planting an acorn in a pot, but you've now connected in some way, or you've put a bird feeder up and you've watched the birds come in. But once people are connected in little ways, like sowing a seed, it grows. And that's kind of what we want to do, connect them in and help it grow. So that was Tamworth, which is one of our wildest streets. This is a more recent project. This is at Hilsey Lido. So the picture on the left was the old fountain at one end that I requested, could we adopt it, please? Because we're working with Vivid Housing. And the big block that used to be in the bus depot at the top of Hilsey, I don't know if people are aware of it, but they had a cladding issue. So during lockdown, they were screened off totally. So they didn't have a view and they didn't have a garden. And we really wanted to create something for them. So we created a small group who now come over to the Lido on Thursday to replant and manage this bed. And it's not a very dynamic picture on the right because it was only being planted 2 weeks ago. So we've had plenty of rain and it looks very different today. But those are the kind of projects we've been looking at. I know we talked about bits and pieces where people can get involved in lots of different things. And actually one of those was a project that the Trust ran called Waste to Space, where, like Megan was saying earlier, people would recognise a bit of that scrubland near where they live. Because a lot of people during lockdown decided that because they were walking around where they live, their local area, they thought, oh, that would look nicer with this in it. That would look better if that's what. And actually what we did was encourage people to say, tell us where it is. We'll have a go at persuading the council, whoever owns it, that we can maybe adopt it and do something with it. This there is my pop-up stand, which I take to certain events. So I was at the street closures with this as well, Victoria Park, all sorts of places. It's kind of examples of some of the simple things people can do, like building a bird box, building a bug hotel, planting lavender, planting acorns, all sorts of different bits and pieces. It's just a talking point to show some of the things that are very simply done. So we've got all sorts going on. So obviously people are writing around, which is brilliant, because by writing other people will connect in a way. So that's superb. We've also got artists who are donating a piece of their artwork, and we've got an art exhibition in October where an eclectic group of artists, I would say. So we've got some mainstream type artists, we've got street artists, we've got sculptors, have all donated a piece of their art to the exhibition. And it's just another way of connecting another group into what Wilder Portsmouth is about. And they've all been very passionate about wanting to do something. And actually, what I said to them is, you already do something, you know, so actually it's about what your skill is and what you can offer, which helps move other people. And if you move other people closer to doing something or connecting to nature, that's brilliant. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I need to tell you? Or maybe I'll wait for questions later on. But it really is, the message is everybody, whatever or whoever, can do something. And really don't say, oh, I can't grow anything, it dies. You don't have to grow something. You can write something, you can paint something, you can build something, you can get on a computer, you can have that big drill that makes a hole in a wall for a hedgehog to scurry through, because not many people have got that sort of tool. So everybody's got something, and however little, it all adds up. And we hope if we reach 1 in 4 people in the city, you will see a lot of that nature come back. People got very excited in lockdown when they saw seals on the beach or dolphins in the Solent, and kind of these things happen when people give back to nature. So people started appreciating butterflies and bees in their garden. So, you know, just by adding a lavender plant, you'll see that. So people started, because they spent more time at home, more time in their city, they started to appreciate those things and what they actually mean to them, and their well-being, because people's mental well-being is one of the keys for that nature connection element. It makes you feel better. If I get stressed, I want to get out in the green. It helps no end. So yeah, every little helps.
Thank you so much, Andy. Andy Ames, amazing information and inspiration here. The two poles of our workshop coming together. Thank you. And we will indeed, there will be room to ask questions of Andy and hear more from him as we go on with this project. So the next thing that we're going to do is have a look at some of the pieces of writing that have been written already and published on the Pens of the Earth website, to again show the kind of things that you could do. So there's 4 little snippets here. All the authors are present. Again, I'm just going to, there'll be enough time for you to skim the extracts, all of which can be found really just on that Pens of the Earth website link. And I'm going to say a couple of things about each of the pieces that, again, might give you ideas for what to write, how to write, little tricks and techniques of writing that are in the work that our colleagues and chums have already done here. So in Christine's piece, an isolated man who's lost contact with his family begins to reconnect with people as a result of our Reclaim Our Streets party. There's a knock at the door. I try to ignore it, but blowing my too hot coffee, another knock brings me to the window again. I try not to twitch the curtains as I peer out from the gloom of my house. It's a young boy and he's smiling at me. So here we have the classic call to adventure. We're on a hero's journey already, and we've got a reluctant protagonist who doesn't really want to join the party or change their ways. Simply getting a little prod or a poke from any little messenger character that you like to help start them on that process of transformation. So there's an exciting sense of quest here. All the characters are in the story are on their own missions, and hopefully all for the best. So the next extract is Helen's, and here we've got a journal format. So this is a really interesting technique for beginners and experienced writers to play with, that journal. And you can, if you feel that you've only got a little bit of time every day to write, then setting a couple of minutes even for a slot of time like this, where you can just pen another paragraph every day. So the other interesting thing that Helen does here, we've got this guy with this bag of rubbish over his shoulder, suddenly noticing the green in his surroundings and scenery. This is the idea that we call in creative writing defamiliarization. making the ordinary, everyday thing seem strange, exotic or novel. So this is another technique that you can try, whether you're a beginner or an experienced writer. One of these things that we're thinking about here, imagine that you've never seen anything like it before or heard of it, and that way you can get that very very original angle on your description as you write. And then our third example is by Richard, a celebration. She could go down to Canoe Lake or sit on the esplanade with views all the way out to the Isle of Wight and the sounds of the swashing sea. Instead, she chooses to come here, a park bench with no park, an open space as narrow as a road, because that's what it used to be. So Richard here uses one of the great techniques of creative writing, which we call show it, don't tell it. Here is a lonely character, but a wise character, perhaps, whose knowledge isn't being tapped. So he lets the reader gradually work out for themselves by experiencing her inner thoughts and being there as she does her knitting. So it's like a mantra or a charm or a curse. Knit one, pearl one, as this story plays out and this character comes to life. Also having her call to adventure and her moment of transformation. And so the fourth of our examples that you can see the whole pieces easily on the Pens of the Earth website is by Annie. And here in A Year of Lily's Sunflowers, well, here we're in first person and we're in present tense. We're as close as we possibly can be to the character. It's as if we're right by her in her flip-flops as the story is happening now. So Lily chooses a pothole halfway between the curb and the white line. They wait as a BMW zigzags past, avoiding the worst of the holes. Josh watches for more traffic, but it's Sunday and people are eating their roast dinners or shopping or drinking in the pub. So the child's eye view, the young person's perspective, that's worth trying to conjure up and capture, I think, as you go on writing. And so that's where we've got to now, a chance to pause and for you to start to pen a piece of your own. And we've got a few little prompts here for you. I'll read the ones on the left, let you browse through the ones on the right. If the muse doesn't strike yet, you can look at those links, because that will take you through to further inspiration. But if you're ready to start jotting down some notes, or maybe the first lines or paragraph, or maybe a little conversation from your story, then we'll have a chance to do that next. So here are the questions for the creative activity. What little environmental efforts from others have you noticed recently? What's the story behind this? Who might have done it? And here, maybe if you've been thinking of, if you've got an idea and you actually do know who's done it, you don't have to necessarily stick with that. Now's the chance to really let your imagination free and feel that you can, as we've heard from our speakers, really reach out to some real people and really make some differences, though they may be small as a word at a time, going to have a big effect overall. So we will stop talking and give you this little space to be writing. The magic number is 7 minutes. And this in our workshops and our classrooms is a good amount of time for you to really get started on something and feel that you can get a new story underway or a piece in development. So I'll come back in again unmuted to let you know when it's time to just start coming back to the group and the virtual room. and then we'll reconvene for a little while before trying a second writing exercise. So that's all. You please, if you're comfortable and happy, just sit where you are and write, or let this be a little break and breather for you if that's preferable. And we'll kick in again in 7 minutes.
Can I just say, if anybody has any questions or anything that they need, just put something into the chat and we'll pick it up. So, you know, if there's anything you're not sure about, just ask.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just within the next minute, I'll ask you to pause those pens and reconvene with us. So just perhaps finish the train of thought, the thread of the idea. Okay. So at the halfway mark between the two activities, we'll just pause for a moment and let's see if there's any. I know there's lots of experienced writers in the room here, as well as some very very knowledgeable environmentalists. So I think we'll just pause for a few moments and see if anyone would like to either ask anything about what they've heard so far, or perhaps share any thoughts that they've had so far. It's fun to put a few words in the chat, but it's great to have a more of a workshoppy feel. If anyone would like to speak at this point, please unmute and ask or tell the group something, and then we'll move on again together.
I'd like to share. I'm
Great.
sorry I can't see myself. Can you see me? I think that I've been trying to fiddle with it. No, I am here.
We can't. No, but we can hear you. We can hear you, Christine.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, please do.
I'd always hated walking past the house on the corner. The dark windows always seemed to glower at me as I passed. Often I would make a long detour to avoid the house, usually at dusk when the shadows stretched out and tried to suck me into the darkness. Usually, though, it was enough to cross the road and to walk on the lighter side of the street. I didn't notice any changes at first, probably because I'd not been out for a while. On the first journey, I naturally steered away from the house. I could feel a flutter of trepidation, thinking I shouldn't look as I passed. So it was unexpected and from a small distance that I heard it. So unreal. Was it the sound of birds? The silence before had been thick with warnings. That's it. That's all I've done.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Christine. It was great to hear a brand new piece from you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is it? What is the sound? If you can.
Well, it's growing as I write.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm thinking of the garden's coming alive. People are planting things in the garden.
Yeah, great, lovely.
And they've got bird feeders, maybe, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good. A wonderful, a musical call to adventure there for your hero. Lovely, thank you. Anyone else want to try something similar? Great, I see Bruce. Yes, Bruce, if you would be so good as to unmute.
I've unmuted. There you go.
Great.
Yeah, very inspiring. It got me working quite hard. It was good.
Great. Good.
This is what I wrote. I had a love affair whilst travelling across Belgium and Holland. A love affair of people sat outside their tiny houses with lace curtains open to the outside world. They sat in chairs with tables, drinking tiny coffees and little glasses of spirit, playing cards on pavements of communication. Every day, streets became alive with old chairs and smiles. Distant electric trams rang bells in clean air, shunting their loads, shunting clean air, window boxes proud. And the people in chairs on pavements well swept, ate nuts and olives, and talked and knew themselves, even in rain-swept days. That's as far as I got.
Wonderful. Also, all the sights and sounds and smells brought them all to life. All the evocative imagery of that foreign scene. Wonderful. There's something for me about the tiny coffee cups.
Yes.
that sort of captured that mood. And
I think the point is the communication amongst the people out on the streets, which you don't often see in England. That's where I was coming from.
Yeah. I could really hear that in your last couple of lines as well. I think you give us that sort of the wisdom, the fact that there's some knowledge, some wisdom here that we need to listen closer to. Great. Okay. So we're going to go on now then with the second half of the workshop. And this time we'll just carry on writing. I'm going to show you a few more slides of instruction and hopefully inspiration, and then set another couple of little creative challenges for you. And then we'll have our time at the end to continue just sharing ideas and quizzing our visiting speakers also. So I need to just come to the second slideshow. If you will just bear with me for a moment while I make that large. Okay. So I'm very aware that as I speak that there are quite a few specialists in poetry here already. Really just sort of meet this material where you are. If it's the first time you've heard of anything remotely like this, then simply begin to play with some of the ideas, and if you're someone who's familiar with this sort of technique already, then go on making some great pieces of creative writing with it, and thinking about our very specific theme today in quite a special way. So we've come through in our schedule, we've come through these steps, information and inspiration, and we've had a little period now of immersion or interaction with the material. And finally, we're at a point where I want to try and test out a little piece of academic research, a little experiment, because I'm going to ask you to carry on writing soon for a second instalment of your response to our small differences add up theme. So this could be just picking up where you've left off and carrying on with the same idea, but using a couple of new touches now that are going to turn your previous prose into poetry. So I'm going to show you now how to start the pulse of blank verse within your own words. So as you can see in the right-hand column then, we're still writing for pens of the earth. Our biros, nibs and tips still flow with sap, but inspiration comes from deeper now. An inkwell from the mythic mountainside, where poets, prophets, playwrights learnt the skills we're going to teach you in the next 5 mins. And first you need to feel the basic beat. It's de-dum, de-dum. It's like the heartbeat of your mum. So the first poets, our ancient bards, didn't have pens, but tapped out the syllables on their fingers, and it was as simple as breathing and as useful as weaving or making nets. This is a skill that must have contributed to our survival. So when your writing has a rhythm to it, just beneath the surface of what you're saying, it's a beat, and you can't always hear it. Sometimes it's hidden by the heart-pounding story itself. But that meter endlessly reliably, repeatably, ticks away like a metronome. And this is really about as scientific as creative writing gets. So the next slides are going to show you some examples of iambic pentameter in words and pictures. And I'll read out a few favourite samples to give you the feel, the flavour of this famous rhythm, this de-dum, de-dum, de-dum rhythm, as it's spoken aloud. So a few great names. So Byron, this is what we're doing now. And thus they formed a group that's quite antique, half naked, loving, natural, and Greek. Or in the words of Shakespeare, you might also find it goes a little like this for you. In sooth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you. So you can say real things, true things, important messages, punchy meanings. They've got the extra power of this ancient meter or rhythm beating away. So the photo is me with a 400-year-old oak tree, and this was taken on the first day of 2020, which feels very, very sort of ominous. Now I needed it support, and like the lines of poetry get their strength from the rhythm also. There's deeper, slower, heavier words are here in bold, okay? And I'll just read out a couple more lines for you, just so that you can really hear that rhythm. Some of you will immediately notice that the poem on the right is not iambic, it's pentameter, it's got the de-dum, de-dum rhythm, but the lines are shorter. I'll explain. So these are both poems about trees. They seem fitting for us here. And the first one is goes like this. Huge elm with rifted trunk, all notched and scarred, like to a warrior's destiny. I love to stretch me often on thy shadowed sward and hear the laugh of summer leaves above. So that heavy downbeat, the march, the stamp, the stomp, I've put in bold there so that you can see how that powerful rhythm can work in lines that also really just say what you want to say and mean what you mean. And then a couple from the other side then, and this is Joyce Kilmer. I'll put the links to these verses in the chat in a moment so that you can look them up for yourselves if you like. But I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree. And the last verse there, we'll come back and see these again in a minute, but poems are made by fools like me. But only God can make a tree. So I think that sometimes if you want to say something really memorable, something pithy and poignant, there's worse things that you could do than put them in the form of a poem. So there it is. So Stephen Fry explains how to write in blank verse, this regular and rhythmic chant like a heartbeat or marching feet. On the left are examples of the ways in which we can visualize those alternating light and heavy stresses in lines of verse. And these are just examples of how writers or students of writing or thinkers about writing have mapped out, have sort of marked the time of these kind of lines. De-dum, de-dum, de-dum. So you can start by beating out a line of utter nonsense just to practice that rhythm and start to feel how the kind of things that you were saying in your story can perhaps be put even more forcefully and unforgettably in your poem. Okay, and just another, oops. Okay, so just another couple of sort of visual reminders of how you might get this. I am a pirate with a wooden leg. So we want our poems to be a little less clunky than that. I've got an example of my own that again just captures that that rhythm in a fun way, just to get into the spirit of it, like this. I wish that I could get the hang of this. It drives me up the wall and round the twist, because I can only do it when I'm pissed. So dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-dum. And that those different ways of sort of marking the time, of beating that rhythm. You might find it's really so close to the way that we speak anyway, and especially when we're in the flow of things, when we're really inspired, it seems that this is quite a sort of natural, just a natural sort of flow to our writing. So let's do that first, and just so I'll go back to here. Just pause for a moment and see if you can just write one line with this iambic rhythm, this dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-dum feel to it. You might look back at the last line that you were writing of your prose. You might think, what's the next line going to be? Where do I go from here? And just see what happens when, as well as thinking about, you know, whose story is this? Where have they come from? Where are they going? What happens if you also just have that little bit of control over the way that they're going, the way that they're getting there? So I'll pause for a moment, let you just get into the mode of that kind of writing, and then I'm going to throw in one final ingredient, and then let you go on with another slightly longer session, just to pen a few more lines yourselves. Okay, so a short pause and then we will pick up together again. The iambic pentameter. Okay, so let's just pause again there. I can see lots of people evidently writing very, very hard. So I'm slightly reluctant to, but I'm going to just factor in one further ingredient here and then let you carry on writing. So I hope that you can just hold that moment in your mind, because for the Pens of the Earth project, we'd also like to test whether rhyme as well as rhythm can help sharpen the writer's feelings on their theme. What if a rhyming couplet could increase people's motivation to change, or if a sonnet could incur life-altering actions? So I'm going to just show what the rhyme schemes of these two pieces look like, and then as well as playing with the rhythm of layering in that sort of ancient beat to your new piece of writing, we can also try a few rhymes to add a real punch at the end of some of your lines. So I've put the names of the poems and their poets in the chat now. And so here on the left with our couplets, our rhyming couplets, I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree. Many of us will spend our lives trying to achieve something along those lines. So you can see there that each of those couplets has a word that rhymes, that resonates, that matches at the end of the line. And one of the things that I'm interested in is, does that make us try harder, do better, remember more clearly, act more urgently if we hear messages or write messages with that extra factor? And then the poem on the right is a sonnet. It's a Shakespearean sonnet. And you can see, and again, I know I can see who's here, and I know that there are some very very skilled poets here already, as well as some who might be seeing something that looks like this for the first time. So very exciting to be working at that kind of interface with you. But we've got here the rhyme scheme in red, so that you can see how how those sounds are repeated. So we've got scarred rhymes with sword. It doesn't really in the way that we say it today, but in the original sort of accent it would. And then our B rhyme, love, rhymes with above. So here the lines rhyme alternately. They're not couplets. Those recognizable sounds don't come so thick and fast. We have to wait a little longer for them. They can be more satisfying. So we've got lean and reflect, bean and neglect as we go on through that poem. And then we've got heart and imaginings, the E and the F, the first time we've heard those rhymes, and then part and sings. And this one ends with the couplet, as they all do, the GG, mind and behind. So often we, as teachers of writing, would say, don't force it. If the rhyme is not so important, that you shouldn't say what you mean or go off in a different direction in order to achieve that line end. But it's also possible that this kind of writing can have a bigger impact on the world, and in which case we ought to know about it and wield it and see what happens when we try. So the final step then of the writing activity is to continue with what you've started, go on with what you've got, see if you can add the next step of your imagined storyline, maybe with that rhythm still beating away, maybe with that momentum still flowing in your piece. Now see if you can make it rhyme. maybe just once, a couplet just at the end, the bit that you really want to hammer home. Or maybe whether you're experienced or new, you get the kind of feel, the flow of those alternating rhymes through the sonnet, and there's something, you know, that does something for you, and you think there's something that you can do there. So our timing is great. We can now just relax for the last and a final sort of 5 to 7 minutes, and then we've got plenty of debriefing to follow. So please carry on writing and then be ready to share a few of those ideas at the end. We'll just go into the last couple of minutes of writing time now. Just a couple more minutes. Okay then, and if those earth pens can pause just for the moment. It's been wonderful watching you write. I've even been able to see some people beating out the meter, the rhythm, which has been extremely pleasing. Okay. So what we'll do next then, but we'll just Helen and I will just talk for a couple of minutes, and that'll give you the chance to gather yourselves again, ready either to share a little of what you wrote or what you think, or ask questions of the experts, who I've also been delighted to watch writing. So here's the last slide from me, just to kind of bring us back to the moment. So I asked at the beginning 3 questions, and they're still there in the chat, and these are sort of my research questions, attempting to sort of measure where you're at before you might do any sort of creative writing. And I'm interested to find out whether and in what ways using rhythm and rhyme might change your thoughts or feelings about the environmental issues that you were writing on. So this is part of a bigger picture and longer project for me, but anyone who has anything that they'd like to share with me, we're going to have lots of opportunity to do so. We'll hear some of your ideas first. I'm going to go on. Helen, will you now go on to your... Yes, great. Okay, so marvelous.
Right. Basically, it's just a reminder that we're inviting submissions, and an encouragement to read our full submission guidelines. And we're really, with the theme Small Differences Add Up, you can explore this theme in any way you want, as long as it has a positive environmental element. And the rest we pretty much reiterating what I said before. Now, you retain the copyright to your work. Successful submissions will be published on our website and promoted on social media and may be published elsewhere. And there may also be the opportunity for you to perform your work later on in the year. So that was it really on that. Next slide. And we are fundraising for Wilder Portsmouth. And basically, you know, if you were inspired by what you've heard tonight and want to help grow a wilder, greener Portsmouth, then I will put the link to our charity fundraiser into the chat. And I also want to say thank you so much to everybody who's already donated, because I've been very, very touched by the donations. So thank you. Right, that's the link in the chat.
We've also just got some info here about setting up a play street in Portsmouth. I'll just leave that there for a moment, and then we'll we'll move on to the final slide, which is just the pen's logo, and the chance then to share your readings and ask questions. Okay, so let's first of all have the chance to hear what you were writing in that period, because it was extremely lovely flicking through my little pictures of you, and I could even see happening. One of the things that I really enjoy about teaching this kind of writing in real life, which is, you know, people's feet tapping, pens beating on the table. So I can see, so we've got a question, and we'll go to that question first of all, and that is Nicola, please.
Oh, it wasn't a question, it was a volunteer to read.
Brilliant. That's even better, because that's what I was wanting to have next. Good. And I was able to see this piece being being waved out with the magic pen. So that's great. Lovely. All right, well, let's go on to that next then. Thank you very much, Nicola. If you want to say anything first, then do that, or else just read it.
I wrote this in this session, so it's rough, first draft. I called it How We Used to Live, or How We Used to Live. Okay, so in years gone by, we had to ration, a design for life, now assigned as fashion, but far too few of us are making do and mending, cutting back on spending. We have enough, so why accrue more stuff? Blending a smoothie from fruit that is wonky, rejoice. The rejuicing tastes yummy. Leftovers for tea and a meat-free Monday. You don't have to amass new glass jars that'll match in your Instagrammable haste to become minimalist. You've created more waste. Are you taking the children to the park to let off steam? No screens, more green spaces, because it's a race now to refuse the refuse. Recycle by peddling your old tat online, but by going off grid for an hour or two, playing out like you did when you were a kid, in a car-free street, litter-free, doorsteps neat, where alleys are a place to linger until you're called in by your mum for your dinner.
That was amazing, Nicola. Did you really write all of that just in those sort of, that was really only about 8 minutes or so, and by hand as well?
Yeah.
Great. It was meant to be. Really.
I'll tweak it and I'll send it in to you.
Yes. So you've got the pen's submission link. So one of the things that was great about that, and it's really worth saying, is the way that you worked with rhyme there, because obviously in the first sort of lessons of rhyme that we quickly covered here, it's at the end of the lines, but here you've got it even better in the middle of lines, unexpectedly, you know, because before you're anticipating, or when you've been really waiting for the rhyme. So that's really great. And also the half rhymes, so your dinner and linger at the end, it's not, you know, the kind of the sort of corny rhyme that we might see in some of those examples, but something that it just really, you know, sort of works even better. Thank you. Thanks for reading that. And
Thank you.
Please absolutely stay in touch. Anyone else ready to read?
I can share one if you like.
Marvelous. Brilliant. Please do. So Angie. Great. Lovely. Thank you.
My son takes part in a local gardening group town gardening event. So on every Wednesday afternoon, they meet with hoes and rakes and wellies on their feet. They bring their mugs and tea and thermos flasks, refreshment on completion of their tasks. But first they have to clear the weedy beds and cut back branches dangling overhead. There's paths to brush and leaves to gather in. There's gates to paint and even ponds to skim. So by the time St. Mary's bell strikes 4, with weary limbs so tired they can't do more, they straighten up, rub backs, glance round and see a group of friends, a park and mugs of tea. Didn't quite make a sonnet, it's only 12 lines long, but...
Okay. Oh, and again, written in what seemed to be a flash and has come out what, you know, feels pretty perfect. You can, yes, there'll be maybe time to...
terrible.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, now there was something that I was going to share about that. Oh yes, so just, you know, really the first thing, the joy that you can bring just by sharing that piece with your son and the other the other people involved in the project, and maybe having, if there's a newsletter or a website, or, you know, this is the kind of writing that's really as easy to kind of publish as it is, you know, handing out pieces of a lovely cake that you've made, for example, with the cup of tea. So really great. I hope that you're pleased with those. I feel sure that you should be. Any other? I think we could maybe have another piece of creative reading, and then perhaps go to some questions or more sort of practical thoughts. Anyone else like to?
I've got a little segment I could read. Oh, sorry.
Great. Okay, so great. Well, we've got several. So I could see Andy and Anne.
It's Tina, not Andy. It's my husband's. Sorry.
he'll be surprised. Okay. So can we do that? We'll have Andy and Anne, and then we'll see how we're doing after that. Great, thank you.
But is it do you mean Tina McNaughton?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yes, I do. Yes,
I had
yes, sorry.
I had a go at Dum Dee Dum. I'm not I don't really like being kind of constricted by form too much. I do like a bit of rhyme. I'm very taken with walking along residential streets and just beautiful little gardens, tiny little areas that are made really beautiful. So first of all, I did a poem. It didn't rhyme, no particular form, quite free, about a garden I like in Albert Road. And then I changed it to try and do a bit of iambic. So I'll see how I got on. It's very, very rough. Flourish of colour, of beauty, light scent, oasis of nature on the pavement, baskets of jasmine, of fuchsia and rose, scents to tempt bees that appeal to our nose. Flowers look so pretty in busy street. People stop to stare, then chat as they meet. Nature makes connections to us and it. A little adds up, so we must not quit. It's a bit cheesy, sorry. I didn't hear that at all.
Yes, I know. I was still muted. Sorry. Yeah. It's the yes, cheesy or no. It has a sort of powerful. It's a powerful sort of spell, or you know, kind of promise. I think in a way when writing has that extra kind of factor. So thank you for doing it and reading it, and please and be staying in touch, because the you know, that question of the being constrained by the verse is exactly what I'm looking into. So I'm really keen to just talk more to people that have the experience of it. Anne, can we hear what you did next?
Yeah, I'm not a poet, and this is just a little fragment that I've written, and I'm just going to read it because it's nice what I saw, so I'd like to share it with you.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Because the people living in the flat have got a feeder on their balcony, the trusting birds can dart across their door and tweak out mealworms for the new hatched chicks. Yes. That's it.
Great. Yes, that's good. So I like anything that starts because, you know, that's breaking the rules. You're not really allowed to, but we're just immediately in the piece with you. It's a wonderful, quick, engaging opening. And there I really, you know, the very resolutely not rhyming last line works well with the chicks. I think it's, you know, not what you're expecting, but it's a very nice surprise. Great, thank you. So shall we now, I'd quite like to see if Andy and Megan wouldn't mind having another word. So how does that sound? I'll stop perhaps sharing the screen and just now open it up to a bit more of a general chat, and perhaps stop recording at this point.